Marshall McLuhan scarcely needs an introduction. He's been described as an intellectual comet, a genius and a fraud. His books, including the Gutenberg Galaxy and Understanding Media, have had wide impact, especially in England, where they've just been released. Many literary men have reacted in horror to his analysis of present-day society and to his predictions about the future. He's been accused of being a communications expert who communicates poorly. He is, to most of us, the most baffling and disturbing man of the 60s. And I'll say that he is, to me, the most baffling and disturbing man I've ever met. Now, sir, you can't be unaware that there is a growing chorus of criticism and annoyance at things you've been saying among literary circles. The Nation had a rather vitriolic editorial which accused you of being a bore, the kind of man you find yourself inevitably seated next to at a dinner. How do you react to all this sort of thing?
I try not to. I could say these bitter things much more bitterly myself because I'm, after all, a professor of English literature and very much involved in the backlog of values of literacy. And I'm rather disturbed that people are content to see all those values going down the drain without turning a hand.
Do you regret their passing?
Of course. I think the whole Western world is re-tribalizing. We are going oriental with our own electronic technology while trying to foist Western forms on Vietnam. The old 19th century forms we push down their craw while orientalizing ourselves from within with the latest technology. These forms of behavior, when pointed out to other people, send them into a rage. People never want to look at the present. People live in the rearview mirror because it's safer. They've been there before. They feel more comfortable. Anybody who looks at the present is a threat, is a nuisance in the extremest degree. The present is an area that people have always avoided throughout all human history. The utopias of mankind are all rearview mirror images of the preceding age, all the way up to Bonanza Land.
Now, you say we're getting more and more orientalized. Do you think anything can be done about this, or do you think
Of course. The first thing is to notice it. If you're steering a strange course, well, and without being aware of it, why, it helps to know where you're steering. But the inner trip is, the oriental simply means going inner, which is what electric circuitry does. The inner trip is electric, is feedback, is oriental.
It also is, in, I think, classic definition, a kind of alienation, isn't it, from other people?
Which? Orientalism? Well, they think of it as involvement with reality.
How do you think of it in those terms yourself?
I understand why they do. I don't feel any need to associate myself with any of these forms. I study them.
You're an observer.
I'm a probe.
But do you make any value judgments about what you find?
I can make all the conventional ones and all the unconventional ones at the same time, but I try to make as few value judgments as is possible because they're a waste of time.
Now, you have become a household word to a great extent. You have become also the excuse, at least to my mind, for a lot of electronic gibberish that's foisted upon the public in your name.
Oh.
What about this?
Well, that's nothing unusual about that. People have never understood what was going on in their own time. And it doesn't matter what you say to people, they will always translate it into their language anyway. They never repeat what you said. And it's an utter waste of time to expect anybody to report you or anybody else correctly.
Well, reading from that then, you're saying that you have not been accurately understood by the media you're analyzing.
I'm not complaining. It's a normal practice of human nature to translate anything they hear into terms that are flattering to themselves.
Now, what about these semi-sensational things you've said about such people as Twiggy and the Beatles and this sort of thing? Why do you say these things?
Simply because they are, as I can see, accurate reports. I simply say Twiggy is icon, Twiggy is a non-visual entity, is an abstract art form. There were some other art objects around here very much like Twiggy lately. Picasso and Twiggy have much in common, so has she much in common with Bucky Fuller. The dome of Bucky is an auditory dome. Twiggy is a tactile auditory object, not visual. When you pull out all the connections between spaces, you have an icon, you have a sculpture. And this is Twiggy. She's sculpture.
In other words, she's not an object to look at, but an object to imagine yourself.
Involves. You see, all the other senses except sight involve us. Touch, smell, hearing. Only sight gives detachment. I personally prefer detachment on the most conventional literary values to any others. On the other hand, I live in the 20th century, and I don't imagine I'll ever live in any other century. So it seems natural to pay some attention to what's going on in the 20th century. This is not popular.
Now, can you look ahead beyond the 20th century? Can you see where
The future of the future is the present, in any age. All you have to do in order to predict the future quite accurately is to look at the present, what's under your nose. Wyndham Lewis once said, the artist is engaged in writing a detailed history of the future because he's looking at the present.
And you look at the present in much the same way as an artist
As an artist, yes. You don't have to paint in order to be an artist.
Now, why did you invent this language to talk about the things you do? Was it a necessary thing you had to do?
You might as well ask, why did Picasso invent those forms, those hideous forms, in order to report on the world he lived in? He wasn't trying to express something inside himself. He was reporting on this new tactile world that we live in, which is electronic. The electronic environment of information is an incubus.
Mm-hmm.
It settles upon the human sensorium like fungus. It transforms every mode of our experience totally. This terrifies people. They prefer to forget it.
You can't then compartmentalize experience.
No, it's total field. Simultaneous total field.
Well, this is also terribly Delphic. It leaves my head
Oh, well, in the age of the computer, it's not very Delphic to talk about total field.
I suppose
or
not.
Field theory.
What about the computer? We have about 60 seconds to talk about it. A lot of nonsense, to my mind, has been talking about a machine which is basically a very fast idiot.
But this is to assume that it's supposed to have a brain inside it, or to be simulating a brain. It's an extension of our own nervous system, in some ways an improvement on our nervous system, and it puts our nervous system around the planet as the satellites do. It ends nature. It doesn't end thinking, it ends nature.
It enables us, through its speed, to comprehend nature much faster, perhaps.
If we want to. If you ask silly questions of a computer, you get silly answers.
Do you think that you can predict 1 year from now how, say, a Vietnam War is going to go, or something like that, based on
the computer enables you to simulate any type of situation, a learning situation, a war situation, way in advance of its coming into reality.
Well, Dr. Marshall McLuhan, thank you very much for dropping in on us on the 7 o'clock show.
Thank you.